Matthew chapter 5 is the Beatitudes. I spoke about this a couple weeks ago about the significance of the sermon that is presented here by Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. And today we're going to look at another aspect of this sermon, and that has to do that this sermon, what Jesus is doing here is that he is subverting expectations in this sermon that he gives. In fact, if I want to summarize the entire ministry of Jesus, I feel that Jesus consistently was subverting expectations. In other words, people had a certain expectation of the Messiah and of his ministry, and each and every time he turned that expectation upside down. So here we are, Matthew chapter 5. Let's just start reading in verse 3. He says, blessed are the poor. Do you see that? And it's listed on the screen here. He said, blessed are the poor. Now, I don't know about you, if anybody here is poor. I don't earn a lot of money, but I don't feel blessed when I don't have enough money. Anybody else out there? Subverting expectation. All right, here we go. Let me see here, verse 4, which is what we're going to talk about today. Blessed are those who mourn. When I'm mourning, I don't especially feel blessed. I don't know anybody out there who does. Here's another one. He says, blessed are those who are hungry. Kimberly, you mentioned this, I think, in your appeal this morning, right? Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. When I am hungry, I don't necessarily feel particularly blessed. Anybody else feeling hungry here this morning right now? All right, don't worry, we have a fellowship meal in just a few minutes. But when I feel hungry, I don't necessarily feel blessed. Here's another one. Blessed are those who are persecuted. What is that? Well, verse 10. Now, I've never been persecuted per se, but then Jesus follows it up, and he says in verse 11, blessed are you when you are insulted. How many of you have ever been insulted? I don't necessarily feel particularly blessed when I am insulted. And so that's why I say what Jesus is doing here in this sermon is that he is subverting expectations. Jesus is flipping the script. And so when we look at that word there, blessed is makarios. Can you say that? That's the word in the Greek, makarios. Can you guys say that? 1, 2, 3. Makarios. That is the word that Jesus uses that is translated as blessed. And makarios, as you see it here, it means to be happy. In some translations, they actually translate it that way. They say, happy are the poor, happy are those who mourn, happy are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Makarios means happy. Makarios can also mean to consider yourself fortunate. Makarios can even mean a sense of privilege, when you feel privileged. And then finally, maybe a little bit more complicated, but makarios is a pronouncement of being in receipt of special favor. So let's read this again with this understanding in mind. Let me see here. Yeah, there it is. Let me see here. You have received special favor when you are poor and you don't have enough money. You should feel especially privileged when you're poor and you don't have enough money. Let me see here. You should consider yourself fortunate when you are insulted. You should feel yourself especially privileged when someone insults you. Right? It doesn't make sense, does it? Jesus, what are you talking about? Now, of course, this is a spiritual application that Jesus is speaking about, but still there is this expectation subversion. When there is a lack, is what Jesus is saying, you should feel especially fortunate that special favor is upon you. And so here's the verse that we're going to be looking at, which was the key verse in the frenzy unit. It's okay not to be okay. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 4. And again, notice the contradiction. Notice the paradox. Notice the oxymoron of this statement. Blessed are those who mourn. Again, makarios. When you are mourning, you should feel happy. Doesn't make sense, does it? Consider yourself specially favored. Consider yourself privileged when you're mourning. It doesn't make any sense, does it? Jesus, what are you talking about here? That we should feel fortunate and privileged when we are mourning. How many of you feel particularly happy when you mourn? Right, again, emphasizing the nature of it, the contradiction, and how oxymoronic it is. But yet still, Jesus says, when you mourn, It's because you are the recipient, he says, of special favor. Why? Now, he doesn't necessarily go on to explain here why, but there's another passage where the Apostle Paul, and I sometimes feel the Apostle Paul is probably drawing from the teaching of Jesus, but there's a passage here in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 in verse 3 and 4. Notice what the Apostle Paul says. He says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort." I feel that the Apostle Paul here is tapping into the teaching of Jesus. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforting. I think what the Apostle Paul here is saying is that it is in the moment of suffering, it is in the moment of pain, it is in the moment of mourning that this becomes an opportunity for us to be comforted by God himself. That's why the blessing is there. That's why there's a special favor, because it is in the moment of mourning when God draws near to comfort us himself personally. It's in the moments of pain. It's in the moments of suffering. It's in the moments of mourning. It is then when God draws near to us to wipe every tear from our eye. We don't have to wait till the new heaven and the new earth. God is already comforting us right now in the moment of suffering and pain, wiping every tear from our eyes. And so that's why it is in the moments of mourning, it's in the moments of disappointment, it is in those moments that many turn to God after tragedy. Now, if it would be up to me, I wish we would turn to God after blessing. You know, I wish I wasn't poor, right? I wish I would never have to suffer hunger. I wish nobody would ever insult me. I wish God would work with me blessing upon blessing upon blessing. But no, for some reason, it is in the moment of tragedy, that is the moment that we turn our lives over to God. For some reason, with blessings, we forget about God. But it's in the moments of tragedy that we turn to God. So point number one, why is there a blessing? Why should we consider ourselves especially favored? Because it's in the moment of tragedy when God himself draws near to comfort us. But not only that, there's another aspect to this passage, and it's found in verse 4. It continues. He says, he's a father of compassion who comforts us. But then it says, as he comforts us, it says, who comforts us in all our troubles. And then it continues, and it says, so that we then, as we are ministered to by God, then we can go and comfort others with the comfort that we have received ourselves from God. So number one, again, why is there a blessing for those who mourn? Number one, because those are the moments when God draws near to us to comfort us in a personal way. But number two, there's a blessing, there's a second part, because now when we are in trouble, God comforts us. And when we are comforted from God, then we have now the ability to comfort others. This passage here is speaking to us of the importance of compassion for Christians. The importance of having a heart of compassion that is an awareness of others' distress and a desire to alleviate that distress. And in fact, the word alleviate, it actually comes from the word light, from the Latin, light. To alleviate means to bring in more light. When there is darkness in someone's heart, that is the opportunity that we have to bring more light into their lives. So number one, to be able to have compassion on others. And then number two, to be able to have empathy towards others. Empathy, that is the ability to feel with others. The ability to feel with others and what others may be feeling. These are compassion and empathy. Newport Richie, these are Christian virtues. Christian virtues. This is important because we're all going to have moments when we're not okay. Kimberly, I thought you mentioned this week was a hard week, for you. Anybody else give a witness on that one? That it was a tough week? Okay, all right. How many of you it was a great week for you? Maybe this week was great and last week was the bad week, right? Or the week after, you know what I mean? That's just how life is. We'll always have moments where we're not okay. And especially our Frenzy unit, it spoke about the moments of loss. And we can talk about loss in a personal sense. When a loved one passes away, it's personal loss. We can also speak of loss as far as material loss, when we lose something material. I remember when I was in 7th grade, my parents really didn't do what is it? What do you call that when you do a job and then they give you a little bit of money? What do you call that? Allowances. That's right. I don't even know what the name of it is because it didn't even exist in our house. Parents never gave us any money. We just had to clean up the house. We just had to do our chores, and that was it. We had to do them because we had to do them, and it would be good for us. All right. Never had any allowance, right? And so I remember I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, and for whatever reason, my dad handed me a $10 bill. Now, for someone who never had money ever, to have a $10 bill, and he gave me that $10 bill, and I took it to school, and that was my lunch money. My dad decided to give me, I guess, the entire week's lunch money all in one day, and I put that. I didn't even have a wallet. That's right, because we didn't even have anything. So I put it into my pocket, those $10, and I was like, wow, this is so amazing. 12 years old, never had money. Here is a $10 bill. This is so amazing. I put it in my pocket, and as I put it in my pocket, I don't actually put it in my pocket. It actually just falls on the ground. I don't even notice it. And I walk off, and then sure enough, later in the day, I have to pay for lunch, and I go into my pockets. Where is it? And you can just imagine how I don't know if you can imagine or not. This is the feeling here, empathy, remember, right? I just felt sick to my stomach. I felt a little bit of pain in my back. Anybody feel that when you get feeling something and then you feel your back, just kind of tightening up? I mean, it was only $10, right? But for me, that was something new. That was something special. And sure enough, one of my friends, he saw the distress, and he came up to me, and he said, hey, Jonathan, here's some money for your lunch. That's powerful, isn't it? Loss. Personal loss, material loss. For me, it was $10. It could have been theft. You've experienced theft. It could have been a natural disaster where you've lost materials. It could be a relationship that you have lost, whether through divorce, whether friendships that are no longer there. Opportunity, loss of opportunity. You didn't get the job. You didn't get the promotion. You didn't get on the soccer team. That was me. I didn't get on the soccer team. Opportunity, there was loss, and I was crying, and I was mourning for that one. I didn't make it in the high school soccer team. I didn't make the cut. Or maybe an opportunity loss. You had an opportunity, but for whatever reason, you decided to pass on it, and now you're regretful of passing up on that opportunity. There's all forms of loss. You could have a loss in your health, and now you are mourning that loss in your health. You're not as young as you used to. You can't see the same way you used to. You can't hear the same way you used to. All these are losses. All these are changes that take place in our life. The stages of life are change. I'm mourning. I mentioned that. That's probably why I was reflecting on my little ones. I mourn the fact that my little children, they're not babies anymore. And I look back on those baby pictures. Parents, do you sense that? You look at those baby pictures, and they were just babies just a little while ago, and you were holding them in your arms, and now they're growing, and they're no longer babies. You have a sense of loss. It's a change in your stage of life. This is where mourning comes in, and then you start feeling grief. And so that's the change, a condition of having lost someone or something. And then grief is that feelings that you feel as you go through that process of change. Grief is that natural, normal, emotional reaction to the loss. What is familiar no longer is, and now there's conflict between the old feelings and the new feelings, and this is sometimes why we don't feel okay. And it's okay not to be okay. But then God, it's in those moments that he comes to us to try to point us towards a future, towards hope, towards compassion, and to have comfort. And so here are some of the do's and don'ts of comfort. And by the way, after the screen, we're going to have a Kahoot quiz. So get your phones ready for that. After this slide, we're going to have a Kahoot quiz. All right, so here we go. Do's and don'ts. Number 1. Remember, compassion and empathy as a Christian virtue. Here it is, do's and don'ts of compassion and of empathy. Number 1, acknowledge the feelings that are being felt. Now, this may sometimes require a little bit of skill. and a little bit of practice on this one to know exactly what people are feeling. But just allow, give the person an opportunity to express how they feel. Number 2, this is a don't. So number 1, do acknowledge the feelings. Number 2, don't. Don't minimize the feeling. Don't minimize it. Now, I'm going to share with you an example. It may be a little bit heavy, but it's okay. And when we're talking about loss, many of you know that we lost our firstborn son. He passed away. And so we had individuals who had good intentions, and they meant well, and they wanted to comfort us. And I believe with all my heart that they had compassion for us and empathy, and they wanted to help us. And this is how they helped us. Do you want to hear how they helped us? They come up to us and they said, "Oh, it's better this way. Oh, it's better this way. Imagine if he would have lived and all the complications that he would have lived with, and the shortcomings that he would have had." Now, they meant well, and these were individuals that had children with complications, and so one of them was a teacher that worked with children that had different complications, and so they meant well. But that's not necessarily what we needed to hear at that moment, was it? Number 2, they try to comfort us. They said, "You're young. You can still have more children." We were young, and we could still have more children, right? And they meant well, but that wasn't exactly what we needed to hear at that time. And here's the third one. And this one actually was from a pastor. So I want to apologize for any pastor who's ever said anything that's boneheaded. If I have said something that's boneheaded, please forgive me. We are also humans as well. And this was a pastor who came up to me and he said, "Well, the good thing is he died at birth, and that way you didn't have time to develop a connection." Now, I don't want to scare you, right? I don't want to scare you. If someone is hurting now, you're like, "Oh, goodness, I don't want to say anything. If someone's hurting, maybe I'm going to say a boneheaded thing." No, I don't want to scare you with that. This is an opportunity for all of us to grow. It's an opportunity for me to extend grace, right? And to accept where they were coming from. Instead of turning towards the darkness and bitterness, know that it had good intentions, right, to grow. And it's also an opportunity for them to know, hey, those are boneheaded things. Don't say that next time. Think a little bit more, right? Okay, so do's and don'ts of compassion. Acknowledge the feelings. Don't minimize them. It's a learning opportunity for all of us. Try not to make it better. Just try to acknowledge it. In fact, this is the irony of tragedy and of pain and suffering, is that one of the ways that it becomes better is to acknowledge the reality in the way that it feels. Not to deny reality, not to minimize reality, but acknowledge and to give voice. This is how I'm feeling. Do's and don'ts. Number 1, acknowledge feelings. Number 2, don't minimize. Number 3, express support by being present. I remember when our son passed away, most people couldn't get out of the door fast enough when they saw us coming because they knew what had happened and they didn't really want to ask us about what had happened, and so they would try to make a quick exit, right? Express support, or the deafening silence when it would come up. Crickets. No one wants to talk about it. And I understand it's not like something, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. My son just died," right? I mean, that's not how you start a conversation, right, also? But there is just a little, we feel uncomfortable with something like that. Number 1, acknowledge the feelings. Number 2, don't minimize. Number 3, express support. Be present there. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say, "I'm sorry for your loss." It's okay to say, if you need to talk about it, "I'm willing to listen," and then to be available. They may not take you up in the moment, but they may call you in a couple hours. They may call you the following day. They may call you sometime. Be present and be available to pick up that phone. Be available to talk about it, to listen. Number 1, do's and don'ts of comfort and compassion. Number 1, acknowledge the feelings. Number 2, don't minimize. Number 3, express support. Be present. Number 4, express affection. I care for you. Number 5, this was, if appropriate, I'm not a touchy-feely person. I really am not. And in fact, I really don't even like to shake hands. I'll do fist pumps now since the pandemic, I will do it, but I'm just giving you a little bit of insight on me. I'm not really a hugger. I mean, I will hug you if you hug me, right? But I'm not a touchy-feeling person, but let me tell you something, Newport Richie. when my son passed away, there was nothing more powerful than hugs. Hugs. And the church members would come up to me and hug me. And I don't know what it was about the hug, what it was about the touch. There was nothing more powerful than a hug, than an embrace. If appropriate, do's and don'ts of compassion, of empathy. Number 1, acknowledge the feelings. Number 2, don't minimize. Express support, be present. Number 4, express affection. And if appropriate, if you can, hug. Give a good hug. All right, are you ready for that Kahoot quiz? All right, here we go. Which statement is encouraging? Multiple choice. Which statement is encouraging? Just forget about it. You'll get over it. I care about you. Which statement is encouraging? Which statement is compassionate? Okay, all right. Let me see here. All right, pretty good. Oh, you know, we had a couple people. We had a couple people that put all of the above. That's not. I actually want to say something. That's probably not the wrong answer. It all depends on the intensity of something, right? You know, I mean, not everything is a loss of a loved one, right? There are some little things, you know, that maybe someone maybe does need to say, hey, forget about it. You know, if you're like going over and over and over and over again in your mind, or some people do need to get over it, right? But for the most part, you know, letting people know we care about you, right? I think that's where we want to go here. Okay, all right, let's keep going here. Which statement is encouraging? Which statement is encouraging? You'll do better next time. Maybe it's true. Maybe you will. Don't worry about it. Maybe they don't need to worry about it. But which statement is the encouraging one? Let me see here. Which statement is the encouraging one? All right, there he goes. I'm here for you. That's good. I'm here for you. Yeah. All right, which is this encouraging statement? I'm available. Listen when you're ready. You can get through this. Oh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? You can get through this. Just suck it up. All of the above. Maybe it depends. You know, I've had moments when I've been down, and, you know, if I can be honest, my sister has come around, just kicked me in the butt and said, Jonathan, just get over it and get on with it. And there's something about my sister's words that's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Let me move on with things, right? But which is the statement is the most encouraging? That's it right there, yeah. I'm available to listen when you're ready. Was this question number 4, or is, let's keep going here. Oh, question number 3, all right. We have one more question. Which statement is encouraging? Everything happens for a reason. I know exactly how you feel. That sounds scary, stressful, or difficult. All of the above. Which one is the most encouraging one there? Which one is the most encouraging one? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that sounds scary. Can you leave it on here? Just leave it on here. I don't know if it'll go on or not, but I want to talk a little bit about that one. I know exactly how you feel. You know, we're talking about empathy is the ability to feel with, but at least this has been my experience, is that when I'm going through something and someone says, oh, I know exactly how you feel, and they go in a story about themselves, and that's not really what I want to hear at that moment. You know what I mean? And so we may be able to empathize, but they don't necessarily need to hear what our experience was and how we feel. It's more about, I'm here to listen to you and try to understand. So let's go back. I want to finish this just with a couple more slides. We can go back to the sermon slide here about, again, talking about compassion and empathy as a Christian value. There's a couple questions I want to leave you guys with. We don't have time to discuss this. If it was a smaller setting, I would say turn to your neighbor next door or the person sitting next to you and discuss this. But what do you think you could say or do to show empathy to a friend who is feeling sad or upset? I imagine there's someone in your life right now who is feeling sad and upset. What could you do? What could you say to help them during that time to show compassion and empathy? Here's another case scenario that I want to share with you, something to think about as well. Matt has just moved to the area of Newport Richey. He's attending the Newport Richey Seventh-day Adventist Church for the first time, and he has not made any new friends. What would you do to be able to show compassion and empathy to Matt? Think about that. Are there any Matts here today?